welcome back to another Tech Talk. In this live recording, you'll hear about helpful technology and practical tips for learning Hebrew fundamentals. Let's get started.
So let's take a look at what we're going to look at. So this is a tech talk, right? So we're going to look at technology that's going to help you do Hebrew as well as you can, all right? That's our goal, doing Hebrew as well as we can. We're not going to, in 2 years, you're not going to know Hebrew perfectly, right? We don't look at a 2-year-old and think, oh, this 2-year-old knows English perfectly. That would be incredible, right? You're not going to get through it and know it perfectly, but the goal is to make it useful, right? For anybody who is just in chapel, this is a time where Dr. Coover Cox talked about how seminary is really a training ground to give you stuff to say for the rest of your life, right? And languages do that for you. For those of you who have had Greek already, you've already gotten a glimpse of that wow, this is stuff that's gonna be so useful in the future, right? So we're going to look at some tools and resources, and I'm going to introduce you a little bit to the fundamentals of Hebrew. So we're actually going to look at just a tiny bit of Hebrew, just a little bit, just to get you ready, so it's not as scary when you start. And then look at a few of the challenges that I've seen. I tutored about 6.5 years Hebrew. So I've seen a lot of different kinds of challenges that people have had. So we're going to look at some that I find that people have in common. And then there's going to be time for question and answer at the end. My goal is to give you guys a solid 20 minutes of Q&A, but I'm going to be here afterwards. And so if we don't get to you, you can feel free to come up to me. Totally fine. All right, let's look at some tools and resources. Now, in order to do that, I want us to back up a little bit and think about not just, okay, what am I going to need for Hebrew, but actually, how do you study, right? When you sit down and you begin to study, how do you go about doing that? And what I've found is there's 3 different kinds of study that you do here in seminary, okay? Those 3 are memorization, simplification, and practice. All right, so this first one, memorization, this is the one that we all think of with language. You're like, I have sat here for the last 4 hours and I have learned 10 vocabulary words, right? And that's a lot of times what we think of with language. But there's 2 other kinds of things that we're doing too. One of them is simplification, and this is the one I'm going to harp on, okay? Because this is the one that a lot of people skip. Simplifying your notes. Right? So you've got a lot of information that you're going to take in really, really fast because you're learning a whole language in 4 semesters, right? And if you take it in summer, you're learning it in a year. That's a very short amount of time. So how do we simplify things? And then finally, practice. Practice, 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 right? This is where your translation comes in. For those of you who are keen beans, this might be actually like creating your own Hebrew sentence. You don't have to do that. All right, you're never going to be asked to do that, well, for the most part. Some professors will maybe have you do that, but for the most part, you're not going to be writing scripture. If you do, I'm going to be shocked, all right? You are translating scripture, and so that's where your practice comes in. You're going to do a little bit of paper writing in Hebrew, especially once you get to Hebrew 4. You're going to work in Psalms. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to love it. It's going to encourage you, but that comes a little bit later, okay? So 3 types of study. So since we have 3 types of study, we're going to have different kinds of tools as well, okay? All right, so the first kind of tool that we're going to have, well, we're going to look at digital tools, but the first thing that I want us to look at is Logos. All right, now I know this is a little bit small. I tried to make it bigger, but I really wanted to get it all on one page for those of you who decide to go back and look at it. Logos is your new best friend. If you have not, some of you haven't done Greek, I'm letting you know, Logos is your new best friend, all right? It's going to be great. You're going to love it. You've gotten this package at DTS for free, free in the fact that you have paid for it with your tuition. But we have Logos training here on campus. Take advantage of that. Go to it. Find out. You're going to have this tool for as long as you continue using it. So learn how to use it well while you're here. There's tons of tutorials online as well. So learn to use Logos. All right, now, another one is Quizlet. And I'm just going to keep this like this for now because we're going to go somewhere else in just a second. Quizlet. All right, how many of you have used Quizlet before? All right, how many of you have used the games on Quizlet? All right, now there's games on Quizlet. Now if you look at it on your phone, you're not going to see all the games on Quizlet, all right? However, if you go on your computer, you will see that they actually have certain things. If this is your thing, that you might enjoy this, they actually have like an space alien game, all right? Where there's like space aliens coming down and they're your words, your Hebrew words. And in order to shoot them out, you've got to type in the English word, all right? And then it gets faster and faster and faster and faster. It's a great memorization tool, right? So take advantage of that. Anki is another one. Anki, I've heard it both ways. It's another one. It's another flashcard option for you. But here's what I want to let you know, all right? And I hesitate to say this because I know it's a tech talk, okay? But what I encourage you to do, make your flashcards first. Write the words down, all right? This isn't as important in Greek, but in Hebrew, y'all, those letters be looking weird. They do. They look real strange. And if you don't write them down, they're going to continue to look strange, all right? Get it down. Write that thing down. And you don't have to memorize words individually. You can group them. Have a group of similar words that you're learning that go together. Put that on a single flashcard and memorize it that way. There's lots of different options, right? But use Quizlet to prep for class, all right? You see the difference? So learn it. There's 2 steps in this process. Learn it for yourself and then quiz yourself using Quizlet, see? I think I've seen that be beneficial. All right, and then animatedhebrew.com. I'm going to take you there really quick. This is animatedhebrew.com. It's literally this one guy who's collected all these resources, okay? I'm just going to scroll down just to show you. So there's Hebrew syllable practice, Hebrew words, the Hebrew alphabet. You're probably not going to have to learn the alphabet as it stands, depending on the professor that you choose. But you will have to know the letters, okay? And then there's video lectures. And I'm pretty sure these video lectures are, on the Ross Biblical Hebrew textbook, which is the one that most professors use. So these are actually like 35 plus hours of lectures on the book that you have to use, right? So it's a great resource. There is a real live actual Jonah interactive comic. It will read it for you, and you can click on the words, and this individual has actually created a cartoon of Jonah in Hebrew that you can go through. It has translation values and all those sorts of things. It's a cool resource if you like that kind of thing. And you're going to have to do Jonah in Hebrew too. That's your second semester. You get into actual translation faster than you do in Greek. And then there's a Bible audio reader. I would really encourage you, listen to Hebrew. Listen to it. And then for those of you who are interested in this kind of thing, there's manuscripts. If you're like, hey, I really want to work in the Dead Sea Scrolls, or I really want to see some of the original manuscripts, if only just to remind yourself that this is worth learning on a Saturday night. Real people worked on this. This is worth learning, right? You can look at these manuscripts and see this is the Cairo Geniza collection. Really cool stuff. You can see this might actually be worth learning. There's lots of stuff on here, all right? I mean, it just keeps going. So I would encourage you, take a look at it, animatedhebrew.com. There's tons of things on here. Okay. Let's take a look now at some note-taking tools, all right? Shouldn't have gotten out because I'm actually going to have to go right back in. So let's take a look at some note-taking stuff. All right. Now, some of you are going to want to use an iPad for note-taking. This is perfectly fine. If you're a pencil person, I am. Okay, I'm a pencil person. In fact, I have a fountain pen kind of thing. Like, I love it, and I have erasable pens. I'm a pen and ink kind of girl. All right, but if you like note-taking apps, one that I have used that I do enjoy using, I'm going to show you Notion. If you've never heard of Notion, it is an online resource. It's free. This is what I used for my comprehensive exam preparation for my PhD program. okay? We have a lot of information, and then we had to be able to spit it right back out for a lot of time. And so this was a great resource for me. And what I like about it is their toggle system, okay? Now, the way that this might be helpful for you is you're going to learn, and we'll go over this very briefly, but you're going to learn all different kinds of tenses and stems that you're going to learn. It means something totally different in Hebrew than in Greek, so just wipe that right out of your memory. I don't know why they chose tree analogies for everything, but stems are something totally different in Hebrew, right? It can help you keep things organized, all right? And it can help you like think, okay, how many did I have in my list? Okay, that's right, I had 5, you know, and kind of think through it. So this is an option. Notability is another one for those of you who use an iPad. The Notability it can look like paper on your iPad, and you can kind of write on it. Microsoft OneNote, Apple Notes, Google Docs, all of these have pretty similar features, all right? A little bit different, and for those of you who are like really into tech, you'll be like, they're all so different, but for the average Luddite, they're not all that different, all right? And if the goal is taking notes, any one of these will do you justice if you want to take them online. But here's the thing, if you choose to use these, back them up, okay? I have seen so many students come to me and they're like, here's the thing, I lost 36 chapters of notes because I accidentally like deleted a Google Doc. Back them up, all right? But on top of that, whenever you're going through and you've got your Ross textbook, there's a nice little section that's blank at the top of your Ross textbook. What I would encourage you to do is to summarize each chapter. Write down the top 2 or 3 points that you need to know from each chapter. Write it right there at the top, and that way whenever you flip back through and you're thinking, okay, I have to review chapter 12 or chapter 10, you know, for my upcoming exam. What was chapter 10 on? Oh yeah, that's right, it was Introduction to Perfect Verbs. That is what it's on, by the way. Chapter 10 is the Introduction to Perfect Verbs. I need to know, oh yeah, that's right, I need to know the chart, and I need to know, you know, whatever. I don't remember everything in chapter 10, I just remember it's perfect verbs. But you'll know because you'll have it at the top. Okay, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to go through. But what it's also going to do, we're going to talk about this in a second, it's going to keep things simple, all right? That's the big thing. You're going to want to keep things as absolutely simple as possible when you're starting out. Know what you need to know and know what's not that important, okay? And we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, enough on that. Let's look at the fundamentals of Hebrew. Okay, we're going to go over some basics. Don't get overwhelmed. You're going to learn this in day 1. And I would encourage you, whoever your professor is, I know a lot of people start off with Dr. Coover Cox. If you're starting off with her, guess what? You can sit down with her for an hour, and by the end of the hour, she will have you reading Hebrew. She's very good at this. So don't be overwhelmed by this. You're going to have the opportunity to learn it, okay? But I just want to go over some of the basics. Okay, letters. Now, unfortunately, this is smaller than I had hoped it would be. But regardless, there's 3 different kinds of letters, all right? Now, in Greek, you learned the letters and you said, cool, yeah, I learned this stuff in like high school math. I recognize a lot of these. This is great. And then you kind of never really used them again except to create the words, and they didn't really matter as much except, you know, you had some letters lengthen to other letters and you kind of had to know those. The letters in Hebrew are much more important, all right? This is what makes Hebrew 1 difficult, is that you're being introduced to a system that's nothing like English, really. It's a Middle Eastern system. English is really based off of a lot of Greek and Latin, and so it's very familiar to us. Hebrew, not that way. Go ahead and learn your letters ahead of time, by the way. Just go ahead and get that out of the way. Go ahead and start on that because they look weird. But you have 5 guttural letters. All right, guttural letters, all that means is that you are, you're not like putting your tongue together in order to create them. You're not putting your lips together in order to create them. For us, a lot of times we think of these as vowels. For them, these are actual consonants. So you have aleph, ayin, hey, chet, and resh. You can hear chet shows up. Here's a little bit of a difference, right? We don't have an equivalent to that. You got to spit a little bit. If we spit in English, people are like, I think you need a little rest because that's not going to go down here, right? In Hebrew, you got to spit a little bit. You got to like bring a water bottle to Hebrew class. You have your Dagesh Forte letters, all right? All this means in Hebrew, you see that little dot? For those of you who can see this well, I have the top letter there is bait. And then I have an arrow, and it goes to bait with a dot, all right? In Hebrew, you have evil twins, all right? You have, that dot has an identical brother, all right? That dot can mean two things. It can be called a Dagesh Lene or a Dagesh Forte, all right? I put Dagesh Forte letters because I wrote down the evil brother. These are Dagesh Lene letters, not Dagesh Forte letters, but you don't really care yet. That's okay. My point is, there's certain letters that take that dot, all right? Certain letters that take that dot, and all it's doing is it's saying, instead of saying ba, you're going to say va, or instead of saying va, you're going to say ba, right? Instead of saying pa or fa, you're going to say pa, all right? It just deals with how it sounds, and this is why I encourage you, listen to Hebrew, because you're going to be able to hear it a little bit better if you listen to it. You'll hear these differences. But then you have Dagesh Forte, the evil brother, all right? Dagesh Forte does something that Dagesh Lene doesn't do. It actually doubles the letter. So if you have the name Hannah, right? Hannah. If you were to write this in Hebrew, you'd have a dot right there in that N, all right? And they wouldn't write the N twice because who has time for that? Not any of the ancient Israelites. We write it once and we put a dot, all right? So that is what Dagesh Forte does. So you have Dagesh Lene letters, then you have Dagesh Forte can go on any other letters, all right? And the reason I'm pointing this out is because already you can see, this isn't something you have to memorize now. Already you can see, knowing what my letters are, that's actually quite important. Know your letters. Your first 2 weeks of Hebrew, when you're learning your letters and learning what they do, take it real seriously. That's going to be really important. A lot of people are like trying to get into the feel of the class. Okay, here's how I'm going to do everything, right? Okay, I'm getting used to it and all of that. And then they kind of get 3 weeks on and they're like, I have no idea what we talked about the first 2 weeks of class, and now it's kicking me in the tail. Pay attention those first 2 weeks. This is the kind of thing you're going over. And then you have everything else. All right, all the other letters that you're going to have to memorize. The ones I have in parentheses, those are final letters. So those of you who had Greek, you have a final sigma. Well, Hebrew's like, why have one, right? Why have one when you can have five? So there's several final letters. Okay, enough about that. Those are just the consonants. Let's talk about the vowels, all right? Now, vowels, you're also going to learn this in the first 2 weeks of class, okay? Your vowel system came about, the Hebrew vowel system came about later than the consonant system. Okay, so whenever you're reading Hebrew, let me back up. When you read Greek, you're reading less than, 50 years of work, right? 60 years of work. It's a really short time period that the New Testament was written. Not so with Hebrew, all right? It was written over a vast amount of time. Over, 900,000 years, depending on who you are, depending on how you date the system. It was written over a lot of time. And all they had were consonants at first, all right? And so you're thinking, okay, how do I say a word if I don't have vowels? If you don't have any vowels in the English system, right? How do you know what to say? So they came up with this thing where they said, okay, well, there's going to be some consonants that are going to stand in for my vowels. And they're going to let everybody know, okay, if I have the second letter here, hey, if I have a hey at the end of my word, then that's going to let everybody know this ends with an ah, okay? But what happened is they kept that system where certain consonants stand in for certain vowel markings, but then they created the real live actual vowel markings, and they didn't do away with these guys. So now you have combinations. Now, the vowel markings in Hebrew are very different from in Greek. In Hebrew, they're lines and dots, all right? They're just a bunch of lines and a bunch of dots in combination with one another, and they all mean something different. Don't be discouraged, though. There are certain lines and certain dots that are more important than others, okay? And you're going to pick up on this, but I'm going to go ahead and just keep this in the back of your mind. This doesn't work 100% of the time. This works about 70% of the time, okay? But just, if you have to write it down, okay? In Hebrew, much of the time, the dots represent an I class. So it's going to be I or or a, something like that, all right? And the A class are often going to be lines, where it's or ah, something like that, all right? So simplify it for yourself. I class is dots, A class is lines. It doesn't always work that way, but it often does. And you can, for those of you who can see the chart, you can kind of see, oh, right there at the top, you have what looks like a T, right? Well, what's a T made up of? Lines. Well, guess what? It has an A, AH, long vowel. It's just saying that this is an A class. This is going to matter later, all right? But I say all that to say, when you look at the system, look for patterns. Figure out, how can I make this as simple as possible? If you can remember I class is dots, A class is lines, that's going to help you build a little bit of a foundation. Make it a little bit easier to remember how to say stuff, which you're going to have to do in class. Okay, enough about that last thing. Okay, there's good news. For those of you who've had Greek and you've had to memorize all of these verbs, Hebrew verbs consist of only 3 letters. That's it. All of your Hebrew verbs, 3 letters, all right? So you've got natan, give, devar, speak, avar, pass through. That's it, 3 letters, okay? I have bad news for you, though. Hebrew verbs only consist of 3 letters. This makes them easy to memorize and easy to mix up, okay? So then what happens is whenever you start changing them around and putting them in different tenses, all of a sudden they look a little bit similar, all right? So it's going to help you at the beginning because you're going to be able to memorize things pretty quickly. But then they're going to start looking a little bit similar. Don't get discouraged with that. Don't be discouraged, all right? You're going to be able to get it. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So the thing that's going to help you at the beginning may feel a little bit like a curse once you get halfway through Hebrew 1, but then you're going to get all the way through Hebrew 1 and be like, man, that was fine. Why was I freaking out, all right? But you're going to have a freak out moment in the middle of Hebrew 1, and you're going to be like, Lindsay Ann was wrong. This is the worst. And then you're going to get through it in like 2 weeks, and you're going to say, oh, everything's fine. All is well, all right? So just persevere through it, okay? All right. I take it back. This is the last thing. The verb system. All right. I want you to think of the verb system. In Greek, you have tenses, all right? And that's pretty much it. You have tenses. In Hebrew, you've got a 2-step system, and I'm going to simplify it for you. I didn't come up with this, by the way. Dr. Coover Cox did. I was in her class, and so I'm totally stealing this from her. All right. Teams, all right? Let's think football for a second. I'm not a big football fan, but this totally works. If you don't like football, you can think soccer, whatever your team is. Hockey, I don't care. All right, you've got your team. So we're in Dallas, so I chose the Cowboys. And your players, we've got Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons, George Pickens, and then Rowdy, the mascot, who is often overlooked, all right, but is still a team player. We have all of these guys on the Cowboys team, all right? In Hebrew, you've also got your teams and your players, all right? Your teams are stems, all right? Now, you don't have to know all this information now. I'm just simplifying it for you. Your teams are your stems, right? So your teams, you've got like the Cowboys and all of these different, I don't know. I'm like, that's the only one I know because I live in Dallas. But you've got lots of other teams, I'm assuming, because, they make it to the Super Bowl. So you've got all of your teams, and the stems in Hebrew are, like I said, nothing like stems in Greek, all right? They're these teams that tell you, they indicate the kind of action that's taking place and who's doing the action, all right? So Cal, that's the first one you're going to learn, all right? Cal is just the simple action, active voice, so the cat smacked the dog, all right? Nifal, passive, simple action, passive. The dog was smacked by the cat. All right, but then you've got some weird stuff that Greek doesn't have, like hifil, right? The hamster was the one who caused the cat to smack the dog, all right? A little bit different. You've got this causative stem, all right? So you've got this overarching team, these teams, right? Cal, nifal, hifil, and then you've got the players. The players are your tenses, and this is a lot like the tenses that you learned in Greek, all right? It's just telling you, when the action is taking place. It's also giving you a little bit of indication of how stuff is done as well. But that's where you've got your players. So all of your tenses can happen within the stems, within different stems, okay? This doesn't have to make sense to you now, but I'm just wanting to separate it out for you. Stems is something that's totally new, that's coming your way, and some people, it like slaps them in the face and makes fun of their mother, and they don't know what to do with it, right? Don't let it do that to you. Whenever you think of stems, you've just got your teams, and your tenses are your players, all right? And it's telling you, oh, so whenever the hamster caused the cat to smack the dog, it happened in the past. That's what the tense is doing. Oh, this happened in the past, or it's gonna happen in the future, the hamster is plotting, right? That's all it's doing. Okay, now, done with that. Take a deep breath. We're almost done. You're doing great. You're doing great. I've just given you, by the way, that's pretty much all of Hebrew 1, all right? That's what you're going to do in Hebrew 1. Hebrew 2, what you're going to do is you're going to learn all of this stuff. You're going to learn all of the basics of Hebrew. And then Hebrew 2, what they do is they say, okay, so there's some letters that are introverts and don't stick around. I'm an introvert, and so whenever I'm invited to a party, I'm there for the host, and I see the host. I love the host. I give the host a gift. And then I peace out and I'm done, right? And I'm not rude. I've left a gift. I've left an indication that I am saying goodbye, all of that. But I am not sticking around for the rest of the people. It's not that I don't appreciate them. It's that I'm done. And so I leave, right? And so there are certain Hebrew letters that are the same way, where as long as it's with its friends, its other two letters in your 3 root system for the verb, it's fine. It's chill. But as soon as you've got something that comes along beside of it, it's like, absolutely not. I did not sign up for this, and it's gone. And there's a bunch of different letters that do this. When I say a bunch, there's 5. There's a few different letters that do this, and you're going to learn that. That's all of Hebrew 2. You're going to do that alongside of learning Jodah. So Hebrew 1, you learn the system. Hebrew 2, you learn how the system is messed up by certain letters, right? And then you go through Jonah, who is also messed up. And that's Hebrew 2. Then Hebrew 3, you've got your stuff. You do syntax, and you go through Ruth. And then in Hebrew 4, you go through Psalms, essentially. So that's all of Hebrew for you. Totally doable. You can do this. You've got this. And if you struggle, the department pays for tutors for you. They pay for tutors for you. It is totally free. And even if you're not struggling, what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, you're doing really great, but it's taking you 2 hours to do something that I can teach you in about 15 minutes. So how about I help you simplify this, right? Go to your tutors. They're there for you. Okay. Let's look at some just practical study tips, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about stuff you should do, and then I'm going to have a list of stuff that you should not do. Do not do them, okay? First of all, study like you eat, all right? Now, there are certain days where I'm busy and I have like my one meal of the day, all right? That's rare. That is rare because I love to eat. But every now and then I'll have a day where I'm like, dang, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have not had anything to eat. And I basically eat everything I'm going to eat all in one go, and it makes me feel ill. All right? It's not fun, but every now and then you got to do it. And you're just like, how many calories can I get in this moment, right? But most of the time that's not what we do, right? We get up and we're like, okay, I'm going to have breakfast, and then I'm going to have my mid-morning snack, and then I'm going to have my coffee, and then I'm going to have my lunch, and after that I'm going to have my afternoon snack, my second afternoon snack, dinner, dessert, right? And you've got like your entire Hobbit meal, like meals of the day, I don't know that I eat that much, but I might certain days. Do I study like that? Or do I study all at once and think that I'm going to be able to take this in properly? Realistically, we should study like we eat, okay? And you can actually study in your eating times. And this is what I mean. I don't mean sit down and eat lunch over your Hebrew text. That's ridiculous. That's dumb. Don't do that. Stop it. If you're doing it, don't do it. Take a break, okay? Stop that. But you can study like you eat. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have 12 vocabulary cards. You have 12, 4, 3. Okay, we got 3 sets of 4, right? I'm not a math major. I did Old Testament. The only math we have is like the prophets, and that's not even like real math. So if you have 12 vocabulary words, what you can do is you can say, okay, this morning I'm going to learn 4. while I brush my teeth. You can totally learn 4 vocabulary words while you brush your teeth, right? 2 minutes brushing your teeth. For those of you who are like really serious about brushing your teeth, 4 minutes brushing your teeth. And you sit there and you go through your flashcards, and I bet you by the end of 2 minutes, you'll kind of have some of them down, probably all of 4 down, all right? And then you go to lunch and you say, okay, before I eat my lunch, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna learn 4 more. All right. And in the afternoon, you do 4 more. And then before you go to bed, you look at all 12 of your cards and you say, which ones do I remember? And the ones that you can't remember, you set them aside. And the next morning, you go through your 12 cards. You make sure you can memorize them all. And the ones that you couldn't memorize yesterday, you set them aside. You put them in your next stack and you do 12 more. And you keep going and you keep going. And you break it down like that. There's been entire studies on why this works. I won't read through this whole thing, but basically what they're saying is that there's what's called intermediate lagging in brain science. And what they're saying is if you study a topic, you learn a topic, and then you study it 20 minutes later, you're probably going to remember it all because it like was a 20-minute break and you're not 2. You can probably remember most of it. But then if you give yourself like 3 hours or 4 hours, you're having to go back and re-engage with the topic and force yourself to remember it and bring it back. And if you do it again 4 hours later, okay, what was it? And you force it back in your memory, it places it into long-term memory instead of short-term memory. So study like you eat, right? If you eat every 3 or 4 hours and you study your vocabulary right before you eat, you're going to learn your vocabulary and put it into long-term memory, right? Or study a concept, a chart, something like that. Review. It's going to help you. I'm a little over time, so I'm going to quickly wrap up. But I want to talk briefly about Parkinson's law, which basically says work expands to fill the time available for its completion. So in other words, if you give yourself 2 minutes to memorize 4 vocabulary words, you will spend 2 minutes and you will have memorized 4 vocabulary words. If you give yourself 10 minutes, you will fill that 10 minutes trying to memorize those 4 vocabulary words, and you will probably have memorized right about the same amount. So limit your time. Don't overstudy. To give yourself a certain amount of reasonable time to study a topic and then move on with your life, all right? Move on with your life and go out and have some food with friends, right? Or go take a walk around the park or take a nap. Like actually take a real life nap without guilt, right? Do it. Give yourself limited time. Fill that time. And if you don't finish the concept, that's fine, because guess what? You've got an afternoon study session that you've already planned for yourself because you're not studying all at once. You're studying like you eat. And you can complete the task then, and it's totally fine. Break it down and don't make things as stressful for yourself as you might be making them, as I tend to make them. Okay, finally, last thing, things not to do. Do not try to learn everything. Do not try to learn everything. Do not try to learn everything, because you're going to be tempted to try and learn everything, and I'm telling you, don't do it, all right? You are going to go to your chapter, and you're going to say, what's important? What is important here? And you're going to write that at the top of your book, and those are the things you're going to memorize, and you're going to think, yeah, but I have to know everything. No, you don't. No, you don't. And if you don't know what's important, then you go up to your professor and you say, what's important? And he's going to say, oh, let me tell you. These things are important. You'll say, great. Or your tutor will say, these are the things that are important. You memorize this, you'll get this other stuff later. Don't worry about it, okay? Don't try and memorize everything, especially if you have the Ross textbook. If you have Chisholm or Johnston, Taylor, Coover Cox, they're all going to use, Galt does not. Yeah, Webster and Galt, they use a separate textbook. But even then, ask them, what's important here, right? What's the bottom line? If anything, what do I memorize first, okay? Don't try and learn everything all in one study session. We already talked about that. Study like you eat, all right? Comparison. Do your work. Don't worry about other people's work. Just don't worry about other people's work, okay? There are some people who are going to be absolute pros in your class, and you're going to be like, dang, what am I doing with my life? I'm not a pro like them. No. You're on your journey. Don't compare yourself. Because here's the thing. There are certain people, if you know another language already, right, especially if you know an Asian language, you're going to get Hebrew better than your English speakers. You're just gonna, all right, because a lot of the Asian languages have some overlap with Hebrew. So don't compare yourself to others. Be on your own journey. Don't study alone. Stop doing that. Study with other people, because they're going to help fill in some gaps for you. And finally, and this is, if you don't get anything else, this is what I want you to get. Stop keeping learning languages a clinical thing. All right? This is personal. It is personal. Keep it personal. All right? You're going to be tempted to say, this doesn't even matter. It's whatever. All right? No. This is learning Scripture. This is learning how to deal well with Scripture. Don't keep it clinical. Keep it real, real personal. And if you're not getting something, then you go to your prof and you say, please tell me where this shows up in Scripture, because I want to understand why this matters. Because everything you're learning matters. And if you're not getting why, don't just accept, oh, well, it's just boring. No, don't accept that things are boring. Go and find out why it matters, because somebody will be able to tell you. Keep it personal. It's going to help you because the goal of this is sanctification, right? The goal of this is to grow closer to the Lord and help other people grow closer to the Lord. So find out, why does this matter? I'm learning about masculine and feminine nouns. The heck does this matter? Why do I need to know this, right? Don't get frustrated with it. Find out. Get it personal. Find out why it matters with your relationship with the Lord.
We hope you enjoyed this talk. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.